The Carolinas have become America's newest gold rush. Lower taxes, milder winters, booming job markets, endless new construction. For the past few years, North Carolina and South Carolina have topped the charts as the fastest growing states in the nation, with hundreds of thousands of new residents pouring in from expensive cities like New York, California, and Florida. But here's what the relocation videos and real estate agents won't tell you. Not every fast-growing Carolina town is a smart place to move. In fact, some of the most popular destinations are hiding serious problems that could cost you thousands or trap you in a home you can't sell. Today, we're exposing 10 Carolina towns where everyone is suddenly moving to, but where warning signs are flashing red. From infrastructure nightmares to collapsing home values, rising insurance costs to overcrowded schools, these are the places where the American dream might turn into a financial trap. Let's dive in. Before we reveal these 10 towns, let's understand what's actually happening in the Carolinas. According to the latest U.S. Census data from early 2026, South Carolina is officially the fastest growing state in America, with North Carolina ranking third. Between July 2024 and July 2025, South Carolina's population grew by over 1.7%, while North Carolina added nearly 146,000 new residents, a 1.3% increase. Towns like Hardeeville, Fort Mill, Bluffton, and Moncks Corner in South Carolina saw population explosions of 10% to 16% in a single year. That's unprecedented growth that would normally take a decade. What's driving this boom? Three major factors. First, affordability, or at least the perception of it. Compared to states like California, New York, and even Florida, the Carolinas still offer relatively lower home prices and property taxes. Second, remote work. The pandemic proved that millions of Americans could work from anywhere. That freed people to chase lower costs of living and better weather. Third, economic growth. Major corporations have been relocating to Charlotte, Raleigh, Greenville, and Charleston, bringing high-paying jobs and fueling housing demand. But here's the problem. When everyone moves to the same place at the same time, supply can't keep up with demand. Prices spike, infrastructure gets overwhelmed, and suddenly the affordable paradise you were promised starts to crack at the seams. Now let's look at the 10 towns where those cracks are becoming impossible to ignore. Number 1, Wake Forest, North Carolina. Wake Forest sits just north of Raleigh, and for years it looked like the perfect suburban escape. Tree-lined streets, excellent schools, and close proximity to the Research Triangle's job market made it irresistible to relocating families. But Wake Forest has a serious problem: oversupply. During the pandemic boom, builders went on a construction spree, flooding the market with new subdivisions and spec homes. The assumption was that demand would stay hot forever. It didn't. Now inventory is piling up. Homes that used to spark bidding wars are sitting on the market for months. Price cuts have become routine, often repeated multiple times as sellers desperately chase a shrinking pool of qualified buyers. Here's the real danger: new construction is undercutting resale values. Builders are offering massive incentives, covering closing costs, buying down mortgage rates, which effectively lowers the price without officially cutting it. If you're a resale seller, you can't compete unless you slash your asking price. The rental market is softening too, which removes the safety net for investors who thought they could always rent out their property if they couldn't sell. Bottom line, Wake Forest is stalling, not collapsing, but stalled markets erode equity slowly, one price reduction at a time. If you're thinking of buying here, understand that appreciation may be years away, and if you need to sell quickly, you might not have enough equity to break even. Number 2, Goose Creek, South Carolina. Goose Creek has long been marketed as the affordable alternative to Charleston. It's where first-time buyers and young families could still find a path to home ownership without breaking the bank. But affordability is relative, and when mortgage rates jumped from 3% to 7%, Goose Creek's buyer pool evaporated. Here's why. Entry-level markets are always the first to crack when financing gets expensive. The typical Goose Creek buyer has the least financial flexibility. A small increase in monthly payment can disqualify them entirely. Now, inventory is surging, but demand isn't keeping pace. Worse, many of the listings are nearly identical, cookie-cutter homes in subdivisions built during the boom. When everything looks the same, price becomes the only differentiator, which creates a race to the bottom. Distress signals are emerging too. Foreclosure filings are ticking upward. Investor demand has vanished. Investors were absorbing inventory during the boom, but now they're either selling or sitting on the sidelines. Builders are offering aggressive incentives to move inventory, which pressures resale sellers even more. If you bought a home here in 2022 or 2023 near the peak, you may already be underwater or close to it. Bottom line, Goose Creek is affordable for a reason, because demand has dried up. If you're considering moving here, understand that you're buying into a buyer's market where sellers have almost no leverage. That's great for negotiations, but terrible for future resale value. Number 3, Garner, North Carolina. Garner sits just south of Raleigh, and during the boom, it transformed from a quiet, working-class neighborhood into a hotspot for investors and first-time buyers. The problem? Growth outran demand. Investors flooded Garner, snapping up properties for flips and rental conversions. Builders expanded aggressively. For a moment, it felt unstoppable. Then interest rates rose and the music stopped. Now, inventory has jumped sharply. A significant portion of listings are from investors who bought with short-term exit strategies and are now trapped. They're competing with each other to sell, which creates clusters of similar properties, all fighting for the same small pool of buyers. Price cuts are widespread and substantial. Pending sales have dropped, which means fewer buyers are even willing to commit. When listings rise but pending sales fall, the months of supply increases rapidly, and that shifts all the leverage to buyers. Mortgage delinquencies are creeping upward, suggesting that some homeowners are already stretched too thin. Even small financial disruptions, a job loss, a medical bill, can force a sale. And forced sales set comps that drag down the entire neighborhood. Builders have started slowing or halting new phases, which is a clear signal that they see weakness ahead. When builders pull back, it's because they have inventory they can't move without deep concessions, and those concessions are already undermining resale values. Bottom line, Garner is a textbook case of speculation-driven growth reversing when the financing environment changes. If you're thinking of moving here, wait. Prices are still discovering their floor, and early buyers risk catching a falling knife. Number 4, Fort Mill, South Carolina. Fort Mill is one of the most dramatic growth stories in the entire Southeast. Since 2018, its population has exploded by nearly 80%, a staggering increase that has completely transformed this once sleepy town. But rapid growth comes with serious consequences, and Fort Mill is now facing all of them at once. Infrastructure is buckling, roads are congested, water systems are strained, residents have reported repeated water outages and pressure issues as the town struggles to keep up with demand. Schools are overcrowded, leading to heated debates over zoning and funding. Even more concerning environmental issues are surfacing. Fort Mill is dealing with air quality concerns, stormwater runoff problems, and waste management challenges that come from building too much, too fast, without adequate planning. The housing market itself is showing stress. In June 2025, though the town council imposed a moratorium on new annexations and rezonings through the end of the year, a clear signal that even local leaders recognize growth has gotten out of control. Recent reports even describe a mass exodus within the first year of residents moving in, as people realize the quality of life they were promised doesn't match the reality of overcrowded roads, inadequate services, and rising costs. If you're considering Fort Mill because it looks affordable on paper, dig deeper, ask about water reliability, drive the roads during rush hour, visit the schools, talk to people who've lived there for more than a year. Bottom line, Fort Mill is a cautionary tale of growth without guardrails. Moving here means accepting that infrastructure, services, and quality of life are all lagging far behind the population boom. Number 5. It's Indian Trail, North Carolina. Indian Trail, in the Charlotte metro area, was marketed as the affordable, family-friendly alternative to the city, and for a while it was. But there's a critical problem. Indian Trail stopped being affordable while still pretending it was. Prices appreciated rapidly over just a few years, but that appreciation wasn't matched by local income growth. Low interest rates disguised the problem because monthly payments stayed manageable even as prices climbed. Then rates rose and the affordability ceiling hit hard. Now, buyers aren't just negotiating more aggressively. Many can't qualify at all. Those who can qualify are choosing patience because inventory is growing and sellers are starting to concede. Months of supply has effectively tripled compared to the tight market of 2021 to 2022. Closed sales are down, meaning liquidity is drying up. When liquidity falls, markets become brittle. Sellers can't count on quick exits anymore. Listing prices have begun trending downward in a way that signals early negative equity risk for recent buyers. If you bought in 2022 or 2023 near the peak, you might not have enough equity to sell without bringing cash to closing. Concessions are becoming routine. Sellers are paying for buyer closing costs just to keep deals alive. Those concessions reduce the effective sale price even if the headline number looks stable, which means the market can be falling without the price charts looking dramatic. Days on market has surged, pre-foreclosure activity is ticking upward, investor purchases have dropped sharply. These are all signs that the market is repricing and that process is far from over. Bottom line, Indian Trail is experiencing what happens when a suburb becomes expensive too quickly. Gravity takes over and the market begins forcing prices back toward what the local income base can actually support. If you're considering buying here, wait for the repricing to finish. Number 6, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. Mount Pleasant is one of the most desirable and affluent suburbs in the entire South. Beautiful beaches, top-rated schools, and proximity to Charleston make it a dream location on paper. But even luxury markets have limits, and Mount Pleasant is hitting them. The problem isn't just price, it's total carrying cost. Insurance premiums in coastal South Carolina have been rising sharply. Combine that with higher interest rates, and the monthly cost of ownership has effectively jumped by 30% to 50% in just a few years, even if the home price stayed flat. Even high-income buyers have limits, and luxury buyers tend to be more patient, not less. When they sense the market is turning, they wait. As a result, luxury inventory has been rising, sales volume in the higher price tiers has dropped, days on market has stretched to levels that trap sellers in expensive holding patterns. Price cuts are large and visible, sometimes 6 figures, just to generate serious showings. Sale to list ratios have weakened, meaning sellers are conceding more in negotiations. Jumbo loan activity is down as lenders tighten standards. In luxury markets, liquidity matters more than desirability. When liquidity disappears, sellers discover that being in a hot area doesn't guarantee a quick sale. It only guarantees attention, and attention isn't an offer. Bottom line, Mount Pleasant remains beautiful and desirable, but the market is slow and selective. If you're thinking of buying here, you have leverage. If you're thinking of selling, be prepared for a long timeline and realistic pricing, or you'll just watch your listing age without results. Number 7, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Myrtle Beach has always been a mixed market, part primary residence, part vacation home, part short-term rental investment. That complexity makes it more vulnerable when economic conditions shift, and right now, all 3 segments are under pressure. Home prices have started declining. The median price dropped by 1.3% year over year in early 2026, modest on the surface, but significant because it marks a shift from appreciation to depreciation. Time on market has risen to 121 days, meaning homes are sitting much longer than during the boom. The short-term rental market is struggling. Oversupply of vacation rentals combined with rising costs and changing traveler preferences has crushed rental income for many investors. Properties that were supposed to generate cash flow are now bleeding money. Insurance is a nightmare. Coastal properties face skyrocketing premiums for wind, flood, and hurricane coverage. In some cases, insurance alone can add $500 to $1,000 per month to the carrying cost, a cost that wasn't factored into most investors' original calculations. New construction continues to flood the market, which keeps pressure on resale values. Builders are offering deep incentives to move inventory, which forces resale sellers to compete on price. If you're considering Myrtle Beach as an investment property, run the numbers again with 2026 insurance costs, realistic rental income, and higher interest rates. In most cases, the math no longer works. Bottom line, Myrtle Beach is transitioning from a hot market to a buyer's market. If you're buying a primary residence and plan to stay long-term, it might work. But as an investment or vacation rental, proceed with extreme caution. Number 8. Bluffton, South Carolina. Bluffton near Hilton Head Island has seen explosive growth fueled by retirees, remote workers, and families seeking a coastal lifestyle without Charleston prices. But that growth has come with a cost: overdevelopment. Bluffton has expanded aggressively through annexation or growing from 1 square mile to 54 square miles in just a few years. That rapid expansion has created a patchwork of neighborhoods, many of which lack adequate infrastructure and planning. Water issues are a recurring problem. Residents report discolored water, low pressure, and frequent outages, issues directly tied to overdevelopment and aging infrastructure that can't keep up. Traffic congestion is worsening as new subdivisions spring up faster than roads can be widened. Schools are crowded. Emergency services are stretched thin. Environmental concerns are also mounting. Wetland regulations are being debated as residents push back against developments that threaten natural areas and increase flooding risk. The housing market itself is showing stress. Inventory is building. New construction is everywhere, which creates direct competition for resale sellers. Price appreciation has slowed or reversed in many neighborhoods. Some residents who moved to Bluffton for peace and natural beauty are now describing it as Florida chaos in South Carolina, a warning about what happens when growth happens too fast without proper controls. Bottom line, Bluffton is still attractive to many buyers, but it's becoming a victim of its own success. If you're considering moving here, visit multiple times at different times of day, talk to long-term residents, understand that infrastructure and services are lagging far behind growth. Number 9, Conway, South Carolina. Conway, the seat of Horry County and neighbor to Myrtle Beach, has been quietly booming as buyers seek more affordable alternatives to the coast. But Conway faces a critical challenge. Infrastructure is not keeping pace with growth. The city has added over 460 new addresses in 2024 alone, a pace that would normally take years. While that growth brings economic benefits, it also strains roads, water systems, schools, and public services. Conway is located in a low-lying area near the Waccamaw River, which makes flooding a constant concern. Heavy rains cause significant stormwater issues, and new development often worsens drainage problems by adding impervious surfaces and reducing natural absorption areas. Traffic and accessibility are major concerns raised repeatedly by residents. Roads that were designed for a much smaller population are now clogged during peak hours. Public transit is limited and walkability is poor in most areas. The city is investing in infrastructure upgrades, but those improvements take years to complete, and in the meantime, residents are dealing with the consequences of rapid growth without adequate preparation. The housing market is also showing signs of softness. Inventory is rising and price appreciation has slowed. Builders continue to release new phases, which adds competition for resale sellers. Bottom line, Conway offers affordability, but that affordability comes with trade-offs. If you're considering moving here, understand that you'll be living in a community that's still catching up with its own growth. Number 10, Rock Hill, South Carolina. Rock Hill sits just south of Charlotte, and it's been a popular destination for buyers priced out of North Carolina who still want access to the Charlotte job market. But Rock Hill has issues that go beyond typical growing pains. Crime perception is a recurring concern. While not uniform across the entire city, certain neighborhoods have higher crime rates that make buyers hesitant, especially when they have other options in nearby towns. Quality of life issues are also surfacing. Some residents report problems with code enforcement, property maintenance, and neighborhood stability. These issues are often clustered in specific areas, but they can affect resale values across the broader market. The housing market itself is mixed. Some neighborhoods are stable and desirable, while others are seeing rising inventory, longer days on market, and price reductions. Flood risk is another factor. According to recent data, 5% of properties in Rock Hill are at risk of severe flooding over the next 30 years, a risk that insurance companies are pricing into premiums. Wildfire risk is also notable, with 79% of properties at moderate risk. That might surprise buyers who associate fire risk with the West Coast, but it's a real concern in parts of the Carolinas, especially during dry seasons. Bottom line, Rock Hill can work for the right buyer in the right neighborhood, but it requires careful due diligence. Don't assume that proximity to Charlotte automatically makes it a safe bet. Research specific neighborhoods, crime statistics, flood zones, and insurance costs before committing. So what should you take away from all of this? First, rapid population growth is not the same as a healthy housing market. In fact, And towns that grow too fast often face the most severe corrections when demand slows or financing conditions change. Second, infrastructure matters. No matter how beautiful or affordable a town looks on the surface, if the roads, schools, water systems, and emergency services can't keep up with growth, your quality of life will suffer, and so will your home's resale value. Third, affordability is relative. A cheap house isn't a good deal if insurance, taxes, and carrying costs eat up your savings. Always calculate total monthly cost of ownership, not just the purchase price. Fourth, timing matters. In an oversupplied market, buyers have leverage. Don't rush, don't compete. The best deals often go to the patient buyers who wait for sellers to get realistic about pricing. Fifth, do your homework. Visit multiple times, talk to residents. Research crime statistics, school ratings, flood zones, and insurance costs. Drive the roads during rush hour, check water quality reports, look at how long homes are sitting on the market, and finally, understand that real estate is local. Even within these 10 towns, there are neighborhoods that are doing fine and others that are struggling. Don't paint with a broad brush, but also don't ignore the warning signs when they're staring you in the face. The Carolinas are still great states with a lot to offer. Strong job markets, beautiful landscapes, relatively low taxes, and a high quality of life in many areas. But the relocation boom of the past few years has created winners and losers. Some towns have managed growth well, others have been overwhelmed by it. All the 10 towns we discussed today are flashing warning signs that can't be ignored. That doesn't mean you should never move to any of them, but it does mean you need to go in with your eyes wide open. Ask hard questions, challenge the narrative, don't believe the hype just because everyone else is moving there. Because at the end of the day, the American dream isn't about chasing the latest hot market. It's about finding a place where you can build a stable, affordable, fulfilling life, and that requires looking beyond the surface. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you think more critically about your next move, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone else considering a move to the Carolinas. And remember, the best real estate decision is an informed one.